Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world of ours. And today is a super exciting day for many reasons. Number one is it is the start of season 7 of Unsilenced Grief. I can't believe we're in season 7 already. And the even most important part is the guests that I'm bringing to our studio today. And I want to share a very quick, very cute story before I bring you live. I got a message from a very, very close friend of mine, and we go back, I'm talking like 26, 27 years now. And Jasmine, if you're watching this, thank you so, so much for connecting us. Jasmine was at a conference, I believe in Brisbane, is that right? Yeah.
That's right.
And that's where she met you. And she was like, oh my God, Marie, you have to chat to her. You have to get her onto your podcast. You have to connect. And so we did. And we had a quick pre chat. I'm like, I would love to start season 7 with you because your story is so beyond inspiring. I'm not going to take any more away from it. I would love to welcome you with open arms. And thank you so much for being here because yeah, your day is super busy, and we'll hear from you in a moment why. So, without further ado, would you do us the honor and introduce yourself to our audience? Welcome, Ashleigh.
Thank you so much for having me. Yes, my name is Ashleigh Conwell, and I am a triplet mum, which is why I'm so busy. A triplet mum.
That in itself is already mind blowing.
That's a podcast in itself.
Yes.
A triplet mum. I am also a widow. I am a speaker and an international award-winning course creator, supporting widows in their journey.
I'm so excited about this conversation because I am so in awe of you and who you are and what you have created. So I think the best way to go is just dive into your story and share with our audience whatever you want to share straight from your heart, because I already know some of it and I can't wait to share it with our audience. So take us back where your journey started.
Yeah, my journey starts in 2020. And I think we all hear that year and we all go, ugh, 2020.
Goosebumps, yes.
We all have a story from that year, don't we?
Yeah.
So my story went like this. In January of 2020, I lost my father-in-law after a very short and aggressive illness. Then in March, I was actually stood down from my role at Flight Centre Travel Group due to the unfolding COVID pandemic. So a role that I had been in for many, many years and loved. I was on stand down. That was in March. In June, my husband and I were absolutely delighted to find out that we were pregnant. So such a dream of ours. So we were so excited. And it was only 3 weeks later that we found out that we were welcoming not one, not two, but 3 babies into the world. So certainly a very big shock to hear 3 babies. But honestly, we just felt so excited and we felt a lot of gratitude that we would have triplets.
Yeah.
And so that was in June. In August of 2020, my husband and I, we celebrated our wedding anniversary.
The first?
No. It was I think it was our 3rd anniversary at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, 3rd anniversary. And I didn't know that it would be our last together. So the following week, my husband went out for his usual morning run, but he never returned home. So he was involved in an accident and my entire life changed. So I was 17 weeks pregnant with our triplets.
Oh, goodness.
At that time. So that was September of 2020. Obviously, immense grief. And then carrying triplets, very high risk pregnancy, but thankfully made it to January of 2021 to deliver our babies. So yeah, that was a very tough time navigating loss, preemie babies, spent a lot of time in NICU, and yeah, it was a real miracle that they made it so far. So
Yeah.
that is my story of 2020.
Whoa. Okay. So even though I heard the story before, I was just sitting and I had goosebumps running all over my body just listening to you because I have no words and I can't even imagine the myriad of emotions that must have been going through the excitement about their birth, the grief, the loneliness throughout that, where you feel he should be here, he should be my support person, he should be their dad, and then going through that, but also the love that you feel when you
Yeah,
hold your babies for the first time, and like we say that so often, that phrase, the myriad of emotions, but like I can't even think of any emotion that you wouldn't have felt in that moment. Can
absolutely.
you share a little bit about what that was like for you, the
I,
birth? Because that is, I mean, as much as you want to share, of course, because I know
yeah.
there's a lot of privacy in that as well, but I just, yeah, I
I
want to
think the
create that
whole
space for
year,
you.
if I'm honest, was such a feeling of almost being numb because there
Mm,
was so much emotion that my body just sort of shut down and
yeah,
almost said, we actually can't take on any more emotion right now,
yeah,
because it was, like I said, I was already navigating the loss of my father in law.
mm,
Then I was grieving the loss of my job and having complete uncertainty as to what that would look like. And of
yeah,
course, the whole world was navigating uncertainty,
mm,
to then navigating, um, like I said, a high risk pregnancy. So there were a lot of very serious conversations with doctors through that whole pregnancy anyway. So there
mm,
was a lot of fear in the pregnancy.
yeah,
Obviously, the loss of my husband, and then you're right, then the birth. And
mm,
I think as society, we often think of pregnancy as this really joyful
mm,
time, this
mhm.
preparation. And it wasn't for me. It
Of
was
course.
dealing with the estate. It was, calling banks and getting mortgages sorted,
Mm,
and then delivering the babies. I often describe it as though, and I still feel this in part, is that I was grieving for three. And what I mean by that is that I had my own grief,
mhm.
which I was attempting to process.
Yeah,
I felt like I was grieving for my husband who wasn't here to
mm,
experience what he was so excited to experience of becoming a dad.
mhm.
And then there was also this grief of the kids because they will never meet their daddy
Yeah,
and they will
yeah,
never experience, um, having him there. They will never hear his voice. They will never, have a hug from their own dad. And
mhm.
so there's so much grief almost on behalf of them as well. So
Yeah,
the birth itself was very, like I said, I think there's just so much numbness because
mm,
I'm trying to be joyful, because also
yeah,
with a triplet birth and now having lost my husband,
mm,
everything I deal with, even now, I experience the first time and the last time at the
mm,
same time.
yeah,
And so it's trying to be joyful because I don't want to miss out and I don't get a second go at this. And then at the same
yeah,
time, I'm trying to honor it's okay to be sad because this is sad.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it's also you almost coming to terms with the fact that my experience is so different to what I imagined it would be, and
of
almost
course.
so different to the Instagram version of
Mm,
birthing your baby. But
yeah.
I mean, even just triplets in isolation, that is not a normal pregnancy. It is not a
No,
normal birth anyway, let alone
yeah,
the other layers. So I think there was a lot of emotion,
mm,
and just also the reality of birthing three babies.
mm,
My body, like physically, mentally, emotionally, there was a lot going on.
yeah. I can't even begin to imagine. I want to ask a question that might sound a bit bizarre, but I'd really love to hear your perspective on that. When you said before, the whole world was feeling it, like we were all in this uncertainty and shock and not knowing how to navigate something that was an absolute first for all of us. Um, did you feel at times that your very unique, very specific, and very deeply emotional situations sort of blended into the background, into that, and also with the isolation, that you couldn't find that support to like really hold you in that? let's talk about that support a little bit, because I know that's huge with what you went through.
Definitely. It's such an interesting time because I feel like just the collective energy was so bizarre. And even from a work perspective, like I said,
Yeah.
obviously I got stood down from my job. And then as colleagues, we went, oh, I was sitting beside you at a desk yesterday working on a project. And now I
Mm.
don't know when I'm going to see you again.
Yeah.
So there was this real strange thing. I think in all honesty, I didn't even realize the pandemic was happening. I was in my own bubble of grief and of processing, and I wasn't even at a point of healing yet. I was just really in that initial stages of grief. But I had to keep reminding myself, oh yeah, there's this pandemic happening too.
Yeah.
And I think there was one
But you
moment
had
where it
bigger fish to
really
fry, right?
absolutely. So isn't it
Yeah.
funny that the whole world was focused on COVID? And
Mhm.
I didn't even register that that was even a thing. Like it just didn't enter my
I can
brain. And
imagine. Yeah.
the thing that really was quite funny to me was obviously here in Australia, we had some pretty strict regulation to be proactively and a lot of prevention really.
Mhm.
And there were the rat tests. And I
Yeah.
remember one day scrolling through Instagram and I had to send a text message to my sister and I said, everyone's talking about an RAT. What does that acronym mean? And
Mhm.
she just went, Ashleigh, you're living under a rock right now. This is like a really big deal. I mean, and we just
Yeah.
both laughed because she said, isn't that
Yeah.
funny that you are so removed from this collective
But
concern,
also
and
beautiful in
rightfully
a
so.
way. I mean,
Yeah,
amidst all that chaos and all the grief that you were dealing with, it's actually in a way quite beautiful that you were protected from that. Like I'm
yeah.
always one to look at I call them the hidden gifts in adversity, but it's just really something where, yeah, you see the full spectrum of what you were going through.
And I just
I
didn't have the capacity. So I knew that if there was something really detrimental, my family would
Yeah,
alert me. So I was,
yeah,
I almost had this permission to switch off from that. I didn't need
yeah.
to keep up with it. I was basically isolating anyway. And so, yeah, there was sort of
Mm.
that level of support. But I think what also the gift of COVID was my workplace, they all chipped in to really support
Oh,
myself and my family because of course my family just had to drop everything to support me
yeah.
and my workplace actually did a food drive and so they were all just making meals and getting them dropped off
Mhm.
and so I actually do believe as well that COVID was in some way really supporting me because people were at home, they kind of had a bit more time, and people were really craving human connection and
Mm.
genuine human connection. So I
Absolutely.
think, we didn't have the normal busy culture anymore that was sort of taken away from us. So I actually think this, even though there was this, horrible thing going on in the world, a lot of uncertainty,
Mm.
this beautiful human spirit came out of it as well, where people genuinely wanted to help. And it was no
Yeah.
hassle for someone to do an extra portion of spaghetti bolognese.
Mhm.
Whereas perhaps that may not have happened otherwise because they would have been too busy or they would have been like, well, I don't have time.
No.
And so, in a way, I'm very grateful that that was there because I really needed that support. And that's something I will never forget. And I will be forever thankful for
Mm.
every individual that did that for me.
Yeah. This is incredible. And I hope it's okay. Allow me to say something here about your family, just from an outside perspective. Is that okay? I know I'm jumping a little bit into coaching mode here, but I just can't help it. It really stood out for me when you said that. And I want to share that for a very, very particular reason for our audience here as well. You said your family just had to support you. And in my head, I instantly went like, no, they didn't have to. They chose to. And I know it's such a coaching thing to say, but I do want to make a point of that because I've noticed, especially in widowhood, and I've worked with so many moms along the way who are widows, and I hear this so often that they go, "Oh, I had no choice. I had to. I had to get out of bed for my
Mm,
kids. I had to." And I always think, well, it just doesn't sit right with me because that sort of comes from a victimhood space. And I'm not saying that about your family. I'm saying that about those moms who have that in their mind and like, I have to. And I'm always like, I want you to think of that as in, I chose to, because there are other moms who didn't do that, who did give up, who did stay in bed, who didn't find the strength to get out, or even worst case scenario, alcohol, drugs. And I don't even want to go further down the track. So there are other choices available, but you chose to get out of bed and your family chose to show up for you and the triplets. And I think that is so beautiful because not everybody has that. Not everybody has that support of a family or the family system altogether. And I think that is just beautiful that you have that, because my family lives overseas, like, they're in Austria. So and I'm not saying that to compare, but I'm saying that to see the choice that your family made is so beautiful. And I just wanted to say that because it's really so close to my heart, this topic of family and belonging and having that support network. That is very special.
I
Tell us
think
a
it's
little
so
bit about your
interesting.
family.
I would agree, and I think honestly, it's more that there was no question. Of course, they were going to, just as I would.
I love it.
And I almost feel like, as the widow, as the one navigating, there is this feeling that we often feel of that we're a burden. That yes,
Mm,
it's our grief, and yes, we are navigating it. And then there is this element of like, yeah, that we're feeling like we're putting people out, like we
mhm.
feel bad, or we
Yeah,
don't feel
yeah,
worthy maybe of
yeah.
that love. And I think a large part of it is because, as particularly as females, but of course it's everyone, is that we are often the givers. And so we are so
Mm,
used to giving the love and being there that we're
yeah.
almost not used to receiving. And so
Mhm,
when it's this change of dynamic, we get a bit, oh, we get a bit uncomfortable, I think. And so we
mhm.
can find it difficult. I know that it's very common as well for widows to then go into a state of hyper independence. And I have
Mhm.
absolutely had that time where we do everything and we push and push and push.
Yes. Yeah,
And
yeah.
this is actually, I'll share a quick story here, because this is
Mhm,
something that I've become quite the expert at, hyper independence. Yes,
mhm.
I still have a lot of support and loving support, but I think a lot of the hyper independence is a choice, like you say, and it's also
Yeah.
part of our healing journey, because we're trying
Mhm,
to prove to ourselves that we can do this, that we are
mhm,
okay. And so for the first 2 years of the kids' lives, I did everything. And I did that
mhm,
by choice. So
mhm,
I changed every nappy. I made sure I was doing every feed. I had a lot of help, an abundance of
mm,
help. We actually had another adult in the house at all times, whether that be a family member or a nanny. There
mm,
was someone in our home 24/7 for the first 2 years. And so,
mhm,
yes, I had that additional set of hands. And it was so important to me that I was the one providing for the kids.
I
Because in
love
my
that.
head, I'm the parent,
Yeah.
and Matt's not here to do it, so it's my role to do that for him. So I took on a lot of responsibility, and I know at the time, and even now, a lot of people say, "You put up way too much pressure on yourself. Rest, do this, do that." But in my head, it was absolutely the opposite. It was part of my healing journey. And look, I can see in
Mhm,
hindsight now that I probably did push myself a little too hard. But at the
mm,
time, that's exactly what I needed. And
yeah,
so even though it was sort of depleting me physically, it was actually filling my cup in other ways. And it was giving me a level of confidence and almost a sense of achievement.
mm.
So I think hyper
I can so
independence,
understand that.
accepting support, there's so many,
Yeah.
it's not as black and white. And I think that we
No.
need to remember that as well, that, yes, we have support, and whether that's family, friends, or other, um, to lean into that, and to also
Mm,
acknowledge sometimes there's things we need to do for us too, and that's okay.
yeah. I really love that you say that because I can very much relate to that. This, I need to do this. I want to do this. I choose to do this. And, I had sort of my story in that was like when I got the phone call that Rob died. In my case, it was also super sudden. He was away on a business trip in Perth. I was in Sydney. The kids were with me, of course, and yeah, and we got the phone call that Rob deceased in a hotel room in Perth. Like he had a brain aneurysm and he collapsed in a shower, and that was it. So it was super sudden. There was no pre warning, and the next day when I got the okay, because they gave us the option, who would identify his body. I know that's very straightforward and detailed here, but
Yeah.
I thought to myself, there's no way that I would want anybody working with him to come and identify his body. I'm his wife. I need to do this. And I needed the closure as well. And I took the boys with me. I knew they needed a closure just as much as I did. So from that very moment, from the very get go, from the very first phone call, I took the boys literally under my wings, wholeheartedly embraced the sole parent moment from the very first
Mm.
moment of that call, um, but didn't think that through logically. It was just what it was. You just
Yeah.
act. It's almost like what you said before, the numbness. For me, it was like my body and my mind went into functioning mode. It's just ticking
Mhm.
through the boxes, what needed to be done. And for a long time, I also felt I didn't even have time for all the emotional stuff. And it came, and I cried and all of that. That all happened, but I was still in functioning mode, and it took me a long time to actually sort of slow my nervous system down again and allow myself to breathe and to open up to that and to actually sit with these emotions coming up and not just sort of, yeah, I'll cry, but then,
Yeah.
carry on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, they
So,
often talk about that first year as very much survival, and
yeah,
there's so much admin as well, but you're
yeah,
just sort of doing, and
mm,
you're grieving, but you're not really it's not sinking in.
yeah,
So I think they often talk about year 2 is often the hardest because that's when the
yeah,
reality sinks in and we realize, "Oh, this is my life now. This wasn't just a
this is real.
project that I was working
Yeah.
on getting through the admin." It's like, "Okay, this
Mhm.
is the new
This is not
reality," and
just a
now you're
list of
starting.
first I've ticked through. It's happening every
Exactly.
year. Yeah. I kind of felt like I didn't feel I was in survival mode in the first year, but looking back now, I probably was. It's that weird. It's very ambivalent. How I don't even know how to describe that in detail,
Mm,
but I love what you said. I really want to highlight that because I can so understand that from a parenting view, from a soul parenting view, that I'm the parent. I want to do that. I don't want anybody else to change the
mm,
nappies of my kids or feed them. Like this is something so nurturing, and in a story where you are completely reeling and there's a lot of helplessness as well in the first stages. You do want to do the things you can do, and that's what gives you empowerment. That's what gives you that sense of having some sort of control over what's happening. And I love that you chose that so deliberately, and
mm.
also we're given the space obviously to do that, because sometimes when support comes in, they do want to take over and they do want to do more than you're actually willing to allow in. That's a bit of a tricky situation as well. But
Definitely.
um, quick question about your triplets. We both agreed on we're not going to go into any detail for privacy reasons. Obviously, we don't want to share too much here, but I do want to know how many boys, how many girls did you get?
I've got a girl and 2
Did you
boys.
have
Yeah.
a girl and two boys? Okay, that's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I want to go into a little bit more detail about obviously there would have been so much to work through because we all know, like, people who are widows who have lost a partner, it's just you can't put into words the paperwork that comes. There's so much unexpected paperwork on top of the known paperwork that comes, and it went on for, like, I think the first 6 months I spent in intense paperwork, and then it was still
Mhm.
coming for years actually.
Yeah.
But and then for me, it was so different because my boys were 8 and 10, and I thought, oh my God, they were so little. Yours were not even born yet, and then there's also the situation they
Mhm.
never met their dad. So how do you navigate that? How do you tell them about their dad? Is that part of your
Yeah.
day-to-day living? Again, as much as you want to share, it's really up to you how much you want to open up about that.
Yeah, and look, I think the first thing, like you were saying, those first 6 months are very admin heavy, and so
Mm,
I was thrust into this world of I have to get things sorted, but I also had to get them sorted quickly because I had been told that our babies could come at any point.
Yeah.
And so I was like, the clock was ticking, and,
Mhm.
I was also navigating this intense grief, but trying to keep
Mhm.
babies in, but obviously I'm not really, with it anyway, so I'm just trying to get
Yeah.
through. So that was a very, scary time, and a time when
Mhm.
I was moving at a much faster pace than I probably would have liked to, but I didn't
Yeah.
really have a choice. So that
Mm.
was quite difficult. I think in terms of
Yeah.
the kids, I would just say there's no right or wrong way to
Mm.
support kids in grief. And so um, it's very important to me that, yeah, we talk about daddy every day,
Mm.
that they are free to have their own grief journey. Of
Mhm.
course, there is a level of projection. I think when you're an adult and a child, there is a level of projection. Like, they see
Yeah.
when I'm sad and they get sad as well. And that's just how it is. As they're getting older, they are starting to formulate their own bond with dad,
Mhm.
and also their own grief journey. They
Mhm.
know that they're different from their friends.
Yeah.
Uh, their friends will outright come up to me in the playground and pick up and say, where's their daddy? And I just sort of
Mhm.
freeze a little bit. And so there are a lot of situations that we have already encountered, and there are many more to
Mhm.
come.
Mhm.
I've never done this before. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no rule book that comes with this. So um, it's always been for me very important to have age appropriate conversations that are
Yeah.
transparent, and that share, enough detail that is, like I said, age appropriate, but
Mhm.
also to be using clear language with the kids, and to ensure that they feel safe to either
Mm.
ask questions or to, have a breakdown and have their cry just like I do.
Yeah.
And so, in a way, I'm really approaching it very similar to how I approach it for myself. And that
Mm.
is to simply allow the space, and to not rush it. I have been very proactive in supporting them as well. So I do have a child psychologist. They're a
Mm.
little bit young right now to attend themselves. They're not really
Mhm.
in need of that. However, I wanted to make sure that I had a child psychologist, specialist in that grief
Mhm.
support, but that
Yeah.
already knew the story, so that I've already briefed
Yeah.
her, so that
Mhm.
if and when our kids feel they need that support,
Mm.
they can kind
They
of
don't
hit the
have to
ground
tell the
running.
entire story. They
They
know.
don't need to tell the
Yeah.
story. She's got the context. So it's sort of putting little measures like that in place. And look,
It's beautiful.
sometimes I feel like it's, maybe too much and too proactive. I said, well, it's no
Mm.
harm. If it's set up
There's
and they
no
don't
harm,
need it,
exactly.
great. So
Better than the other way
it's
around.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's, like I said, it's similar to us. Is what are some of the proactive measures we can take to support our own well-being, but also be open to the fact that there is no handbook. We don't know what we're
Mm.
doing, and it's one day at a time.
Yeah. I would like to ask you this directly because I know this question is so confronting. There's no other word to say it. And unfortunately, that question happens a lot. And unfortunately, I know there are a lot of listeners who are in a very similar situation. How do you, because I feel grief language is so important and that we keep it clear in terms of our messaging, and but also nurturing, because
Mm.
our grief language that we use nowadays in society is built on my condolences and I'm sorry for your loss, and neither of those is helpful in any way, in my opinion anyway. um so how do you approach it when a child comes up to you on the playground and says, where's their daddy? How do you answer that?
Look, at this stage, I'm probably still in a bit of the shock factor.
Mm.
Our kids are very clear on the narrative and what that
Mhm.
means. So for our family, and every family is different, our family, we say, Daddy's in my heart. And for
Oh,
them, that means
oh
that
God,
Daddy's
I
always
had
with them.
goosebumps. That is so beautiful.
So they know that
Oh.
Daddy is with them always. And so if the kids are asked that question, they're pretty, and kids are, so innocent and sweet,
Yeah.
right? So if a friend
Yeah.
asks them, they just say, well, Daddy's in my heart. And they feel very strongly
Mm.
about that narrative. So
Yeah.
they've never wavered from that or felt, I'm sure there'll be times when they question it or go, hang on a minute. But look, at that
What
point,
does that
if I'm
mean? Yeah.
honest though, when another child asks me,
Mhm.
I sort of plank a little bit, because
Mm.
also I don't know this child, so I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what language their
Yeah.
family use. I don't know if this kid
That's
has
huge.
experienced
That's
grief or
absolutely
not.
huge. Yeah.
And I don't feel it's my place to also put that complexity onto that child. So honestly, I keep it really short and sweet. I just say, I'm doing the pickup today,
Yeah.
which is true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's not lying to
absolutely.
that child. I'm just, because they're
Mhm.
saying, oh, well, where's their dad? And I said, I'm doing pickup today.
Mm.
And that's kind of as much detail as I need to, say
Yeah.
to another child. Like I say, I don't feel it's my place. In
Yeah.
time, I'm sure our kids will feel a little bit more confident, or, we may have to change our narrative
Mm.
slightly. At this point in time, that's working for us. And like I said, I'm keeping it fluid as well. But yeah, it's tricky when it's other kids. Other adults is different because I can
Yeah.
have a more mature conversation and
Yeah.
sort of, oh, well,
But with
there's,
kids, you don't know where they stand and what their language
yeah,
is around grief. I know we're sort of running out of time. I knew that would happen with your story because there's so much, and I just love how authentic you walk it. That like I don't have all the answers. This is the first time I'm doing this. Like let's navigate that. But I also know that what you do with it is just absolutely inspiring and mind blowing. Can you tell us about Yellow Falcon?
yeah, thank you. So Yellow
Mm.
Falcon is something I never thought I would need, let alone create. But Yellow
Mhm.
Falcon is is a tool to support widows, and it is very much designed to be the practical companion.
Mm.
Through widowhood, we have access to a lot of counselling services and other professionals like lawyers or financial advisors.
Mhm.
We don't even know what to do. We're often so, it's that saying like the deer in headlights, and we
Yeah.
just sort of panic. We don't know who to talk to, where to start. And I just remember the moment after Matt's service, and the funeral director handed me 20 certified death certificates. And I looked at her and I said, what do I need those for?
Yeah.
And she said, oh, Ash, you're probably going to need more.
Oh my God.
And I still thought, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know where to start. And
Mhm.
so Yellow Falcon is, like I say, it's practical support. So I have a checklist. We spoke
Mhm.
earlier around the admin that needs to get done. And so I've created this checklist because it doesn't exist. And
Mhm.
so when it was myself in this position, I had my own spreadsheet going of trying to keep track of everything, just all the
Mhm.
phone calls that you're making as well. I'm like, who did I talk to? What did I say to them? And
Yeah.
so it's so overwhelming when you're already overwhelmed and you're already not thinking straight. And so this guide really is to break that down and say, these are the steps. But even things, yes, there is all the admin because it's often broken up. So you might have to go to a government website for one thing, your
Mhm.
employer for something else, and you're just like so scattered. So I wanted to have this consolidated list. And I'm really proud because I've already had governments and other organizations say, wow, thank you. We don't have this. And so it
That's
now exists.
incredible. That's really
um,
incredible. Because when
yeah.
when when I got the phone call, they were actually meant to send police to our house to let us know, but we
Mhm.
live in a small country town. We don't have a main police station. It took forever for them to find somebody, and I kept calling. So the sergeant in charge actually broke protocol to tell me over the phone, and
Mm,
I thanked him a million times over because I said, you know what, I'm so grateful that I got the conversation. So I was the one sharing it with the boys, and not having police knock on our door, and that is their memory.
yes.
Um, two strange men coming to our house in uniform and telling them I didn't want that. But those two policemen came eventually when we were already gone. I was already on my way to his parents because I wanted the same for them. I didn't want them to hear it over the phone.
Mm,
I wanted to tell them in person. But what they left was this pamphlet of like, a whole list of people that I needed to call. And there were a lot of them that I would have never even thought of, like,
mhm.
i.e., cancel a fishing license. I'm like, oh my God, would have never thought of that.
Yeah.
But that was it. It was a list of people to call. And then what? There is so much to do. There's so much more. And having that consolidated, I just want to applaud you. This is really
Thank
absolutely
you.
incredible and super helpful. And I'm just going to put you on the spot here. I will and want to share the link to your services on my website because I think it is so, so
Thank you.
important to have that. And of course, if you want me to, but
Yeah.
um, it's just so important to have that. So I what is the best way when people are in this situation where everything is just reeling and you have no idea where to start, what would you like to say to them? What's the first thing that you would recommend for them to do?
Look, I think the first thing is to, and it sounds a bit cliche, but take a breath.
Mm,
And it's hard to remind yourself in this moment, but I had to remind
mm,
myself that I'm not the first widow. Someone else has
mm,
done this. You know, there is help out there. I know it can be hard to find, and that's why it's sort of my mission at the moment to really get out as much as I can to say this exists. Like, you know, I don't want anyone to feel that same overwhelm and isolation.
yeah.
Um, but like I said, it's to also just acknowledge, and it's okay if you need a moment, you know, to
Mm,
sink in. You know, it is tough because there are certain things that need to be done pretty quickly. So you are
mm,
quite rushed. And so, like I said, obviously that checklist, but I wanted to share as well that I've also created a course, and that is to support women in the situations that we face. Like I said, there's plenty of like counseling services, which is so amazing,
mm,
and different
mm,
um, like coaching, like yourself, you know, to support and give that real, you know, empathetic,
mm,
um, you know, help that we need. But then these sort of this course is that I've written, which is called The Confident Widow.
mhm.
It's about
I
finding
love
your
it.
confidence again. And it's about
Mhm,
saying, these are the situations that you're likely going to face. How might you
mhm.
go about that? And just some of the tools and everything that I share, I've done. So this
Yeah,
is lived
yeah.
experience. I'm not a
That's what I
psychologist.
love
I'm
so
not a
much about it, the lived experience. And I always say you really feel the difference when somebody has actually walked the talk,
mm,
and that is what I love so much about it. As sad as it is, I love it that you can offer that support now and yeah, hand that wisdom over from lived experience because
mm,
God, we need it. We really do. So
yeah.
yeah.
I think as well that,
Mm.
you know, there might be some listeners here as well that are not a widow themselves, but may know someone. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, there's a real beauty. Like, yes, I got lots of lasagna and beautiful meals, and that's
Mhm.
amazing. You know, often we send flowers, like you were saying, you know, it's sending
Mm.
condolences and sympathy. As lovely
Mm.
as flowers are,
Mm.
as a widow, it was incredibly triggering because I received
Yes.
this beautiful bunch and then they die in
Yeah.
front of me. And then
I
I
know
have to clean
exactly
up that
what you mean.
mess.
Yeah.
So I'm also trying to encourage people that don't send the flowers.
Yeah.
Spend that money because flowers are, you know, $80. At
Yeah.
$80 could go towards this checklist. It could go towards,
Mhm.
you know, making a meal, or if that's not possible for you, send an Uber Eats voucher. So
Yeah.
simple to do, and that help is so appreciated. Or pool the money together with some friends and get a cleaner for, you know, a month or something. So I think we
Mhm.
just, as society, there's an opportunity for us to think a bit differently and offer that
There's so
real
many
genuine
practical
support.
things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I,
definitely.
I love this so much that you mentioned the flowers. Thank you, because I agree. It literally feels like you're coming home to a funeral home, and then
Hmm.
about a week later, you have to deal with another death, which sounds so bizarre. Nobody thinks about that, as in flowers dying. So be it. Of course they die, but you have no idea how much that triggers when you've just lost someone, and then all of a sudden you have to clean all that mess up and put it in a green bin.
And you're
That
cleaning
is
up a death.
another
Yeah.
letting go and having to do this oh my god, I can't even put words to it how heavy that feels. I don't
Mhm.
think anybody ever thinks of that. So nobody means harm. Everybody of course has the most beautiful intention by sending flowers and bigger and more beautiful, but it makes it harder and harder to deal with that on top of it. Ash, before we go, what is the best way for people to reach out to you, to connect with you, if they do want that help, if they do want the practical help, the checklist, the courses? We will be sharing links in the show notes anyway, but what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm definitely most active on Instagram. So
Hmm.
you can reach me at ashleigh.conwell and
Hmm.
send me a message if you need that extra help, or just reach out and say, "Oh, I heard you on Marie's
Yeah.
podcast. I'd love to connect." So
Mm.
that's the best way.
Yeah. I can't put into words how grateful I am that we had this conversation and that you were my first episode of season 7 of Unsilenced Grief. For anyone out there, if that speaks to you, if that helps you, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for weekly updates on Unsilenced Grief. And we will be sharing the show in the show notes, all the links, how you can connect with Ashleigh. This is live, so if you're watching this live right now, you won't see it yet, but come back in half an hour, it'll all be there. So I'm sending you So much love. And Ashleigh, thank you so much for your time, because I know how precious your time is with triplets. I know they're at school at the moment, but I'm sending you the biggest hug and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I need the glasses to find the stop button. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you.